Brandon Marshall might be the biggest coward on the planet, simply because he's on his clout chasing tour. You know, and I also kind of came across something that he said about Shannon Sharpe, which is crazy. You know, so why at this point in the game you're hopping around podcasts, you know, talking about everybody? It's a bad look, and obviously I've read some of the comments, and a lot of people agree that he's embarrassing himself.
I Am Athlete was a great podcast that really wasn't starting to blow up. It blew up. And a lot of people was couldn't wait for Mondays to tune in to watch Brandon Marshall and Fred Teller and the other guys that was on the show, Chad Ocho and the light-skinned brother with the dreads. The show was blowing up. People was really liking the show, but then at some point, because of financial and business, it fell apart. And now, you know, Brandon Marshall was going on different podcasts to plead his case and talk. But in one podcast, he went after Shannon Sharpe, and he said that Shannon Sharpe was no longer alumni, and he don't like some of the things that Shannon Sharpe says about players. Let's check that out, and then we'll get back into the podcast situation. But let's check out what he said about Shannon Sharpe, and we'll come right back.
Oh, after?
Yeah. Yep. That's when he asked her about how many bodies she had. And she told him, and he said he's white.
Shannon's white.
That's former alumni.
And if he was former alumni, he wouldn't be talking about athletes the way he's talking about athletes. He talking like he was trained to be a ABC, NBC analyst.
Yeah.
What I don't vibe with is when you tear down your fellow, you know, athlete. There's a way to critique them. You know, it's like, and you clout chasing, you talking about Russell Wilson a year later on some other things. Like come on, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your platform's too big for you to go chase that.
Well, a lot of people are saying across social media that Brandon Marshall's attack on Shannon Sharpe is jealousy, because after everybody left his podcast, Chad Ochocinco stayed around for a while. And Tim and Chad Ochocinco was still on the podcast, still building. The podcast was still getting numbers. Chad ended up leaving, and now he hooked up with Shannon Sharpe on the Nightcap podcast. And the Nightcap podcast is exploding. I mean, we're talking about 15 to 20,000 people there at nighttime. These guys are getting 20,000 people watching them at night. This is amazing. So what Brandon Marshall was doing, he's blaming his former co-host for this, and he's saying that he's $12 million now in the red because of this. So he's blaming Fred Teller and the other guys. And if you don't believe me, check this out.
Getting compensated at all throughout this process?
I still haven't taken any money. I'm in the red. I'm in the negative $12 million. Like, to this day, like, I still haven't been paid anything. Everybody else have ate and eaten well off of this platform. Like, when I talk about being in the valley and all of that, like, and I wouldn't change it for the world, because, like, to me, I still visualize being on that second mountain at the top. Like, damn, Barstool just completed herself for $640 million. Uninterrupted, sitting on a $740 million valuation. Joe Rogan did what with Spotify? $300 million. The Ringer, $250 million. When Fred Taylor sit down with me, right, and he don't put up any money, but he say he want to put up money, but he don't after a year, and my investment goes to $500 to $1 million, and it keeps rising, and now he's asking for 25% in the company. And I'm like, bro, that just don't make sense to me.
Okay, now stop.
Okay.
Keep your point. Have you ever received any money from Fred Taylor, Reggie Wayne, Channing Crowder?
No. I've paid them.
Okay, now, looking from it from your side, they feel, I would feel if I were them, I would say, even though I never put a dime in, but I helped grow this entity, I'm not owed 25%?
No.
Now, Fred Teller being mentioned the way that he was mentioned on this podcast, he didn't he didn't take too kind of that. So Fred Taylor, he responded back, him and Channing Crowder. But Fred Taylor had some, interesting things to say where he was basically telling them, like, listen, man, you need to handle your business. You need to show some receipts. You need to really, really take ownership. But let's check out what Fred Taylor had to say, and we'll come right back.
Brandon Marshall might be the biggest coward on the planet, simply because he's on his clout chasing tour. And I also kind of came across something that he said about Shannon Sharpe, which is crazy. So why at this point in the game you're hopping around podcasts, talking about everybody? It's a bad look, and obviously I've read some of the comments, and a lot of people agree that he's embarrassing himself. The question is, where are those people that started with him? Me and Channing, Ocho, all the other people that were on the show that he went to recruit after Channing and I left. Everybody disappeared. And if you were right, if you stood for anything, if your integrity was high, then people will still, rock with you. But nobody's there right now. So I can really dig into it, but I think I would just be putting more fuel on his fire, what he wants, considering he's moving around like that. I think what you need to do, boss, is handle your business. Stop.
But also, Shannon Crowder really lit into him as well. Let's check out what Shannon Crowder had to say, and then we'll come right back.
And I think Fred, that was very aggressive and articulate, and I appreciate it. But I would just say the part I heard was a motherfucker acting like he made me. That's the thing I can't stand. How you make me when I made your podcast, or our podcast supposedly, but it really wasn't ours, as we found out. Then go to another one, create another thing that blows up bigger than that even was. That's the thing that got hot about me. Bitch, you ain't make me. Pauline Pope and Randy Crowder made me. I created myself. I do all this. So that's the one thing. And like for instance, there's a lot to get into about the lies. Anytime you want to talk about numbers, anytime you want to talk about contracts and what, show receipts. Don't just say this 25,000 or maybe it was 250 or maybe 1.2 million. Show receipts. If you feel that way, there are some contracts that are done on paper. So if you really want to put numbers out there, we can show receipts. But don't act like you made a motherfucker.
Well, as you can see, these former players, they have a problem with Brandon Marshall. But on social media, Terrell Owens also responded to Brandon Marshall. Some of the people on social media, they went on to say, with all of this being said about Brandon Marshall, remember he has a mental illness as well. Some of that play into his behavior and attitudes, but these dudes here are blowing up. Terrell Owens responded with, can't keep giving dude a pass because of mental illness. He's well aware of that, and when things go awry, he uses it to justify his behavior and attitude. Like they said, he's bad business. I know firsthand. Another person said, we gotta keep it a stat. I Am Athlete fell off since the OG crew left. They really had something special. I used to look forward to Mondays at noon when the pod dropped. Greed ruined a good thing. Terrell Owens responded, greed, that part. Nigga, dude is shady. In addition to that, he's not paying employees, verbally abuse employees, talking reckless to them, etc. Trust me, this is just the beginning. Man, it's crazy, but they it's often said that black men can't work together. I think that myth is starting to be dispelled a little bit, where you see Cameron and Mace podcast, you see Gilly and Wallow podcast, you see The Pivot. Brothers are working together. I mean, it's been a long time where we don't have the best of relationships with each other, outside of sports and stuff like that. But I think we're getting better. The I Am Athlete podcast is doing bad now. It was a group of black men and it didn't work out. But I would tell black men, don't get discouraged, because we are working together. We're working together on multiple levels, doing great jobs. This is just one of the bad stories. But we have a lot of the Nightcap podcast is actually doing this thing with Chad Ochocinco and Shannon Sharpe. So brothers is doing their thing. They're coming up. They also some of these podcasts also have black women on it with them as well. So the job is being done. I was never really a big fan of Brandon Marshall. I never knew he had mental illness, but I always thought that something was off about this guy. He's always going off and just acting crazy all the time, even during his career. That's why he played on so many different teams. So, but I was never aware that he actually suffered from mental illness. But Terrell Owens called that out and said that he can't keep using that as a crutch, because he's well aware of what he's doing, and now he's using that as in his advantage. Greed has destroyed the show. Now, I Am Athlete was falling off because I would tune on to I Am Athlete, and they would only have about 100 people watching them, and I was like, wow, But it is what it is, man. The players are beefing with each other. Greed broke them up. But I'm gonna cut this video short here. Leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. And remember, I love y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe to Street Media TV. Remember, I love y'all. Till the next time. Peace.